Okay. Um, as I said to start this off, if I tried to list all of Dee's accomplishments and her public service record, we wouldn't really have time for any other part of the meeting. But
You're being
first,
generous.
well, you're still County Council District 2, right?
Hmm.
Okay, and
Yeah.
that's if you look at Hoops Reservoir, I looked on the map, and you kind of go north and east, and a little bit south from that. That's her territory. She's been involved in land use, land preservation, historic preservation, ethics reform, transparency in government, and smart transportation. And she served on teams, these are governor level teams, for the former Governor Jack Markell and Ruth Ann Minner. And she's been on the boards of numerous nonprofits. In 2010, Dee co-founded and she continues to chair Plastics Free Delaware, which aims to reduce plastic pollution in our Delaware communities and environment through educational programs, awareness building, which we're doing now, and advocacy initiatives. And so I will turn that over to Dee in just a minute, but I want to give Sally just a minute to talk about something that we did at our church and PCUSA. So
Yeah.
really,
Yep, very brief. As most people on the call know, the governing body of the Presbyterian Church is the General Assembly, and there's groups of churches, presbyteries can, if they want to make a change, submit what's called an overture to the General Assembly for consideration. This past summer, the Susquehanna Presbytery developed an overture on plastics that calls for churches and congregations to move from a throwaway culture to a sustainable culture, and to educate. Thank you, Dee. To educate on the subject of single-use plastics. So our session supported it. Our Newcastle County Presbytery support, and I say that all the time, Newcastle Presbytery supported the overture, and it passed in the General Assembly this year. So that was really good news. And on a local level at Westminster, our deacons, when we move our coffee social time after church to the upstairs, we're doing away with the disposable cups, and we're going to be using ceramic mugs for coffee and tea again. And we're getting rid of those little plastic creamers. So more to do, but we're making progress.
okay. Thank you, Sally. Dee, you can share screen if you want, or just talk. It's all up to you now.
Thank you both. That's awesome, Sally, that you guys are doing that. And so let me just, yeah. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
See if I can get it to go full screen. There we go. Okay. So thanks for having me tonight. I just thought I'd kind of give you a quick history of kind of how we got started and what we're doing, and then happy to take questions. We can have discussion, whatever you want to do. So moving right along, we actually got started almost 15 years ago when my kids were little. They're both now post-college, but that's the two of them there in that middle photo. We had a group out of the Jane Goodall Institute. It's a program that the Jane Goodall Institute runs called Roots and Shoots. And we were just doing all kinds of different environmental educational stuff with this group of kids, of friends of ours and stuff. So I had this brilliant idea. I saw where countries all around the world were actually banning plastic bags or putting fees on plastic bags. And I thought, well, we could get that done really quickly. Let's pick that up as a project. So we did, and it took us about 9 years to get the legislation passed, and my kids were no longer involved, but I was committed to it. So I was like, I'm gonna get this done. So we did finally get it done after a while, but we'll come back to that, I guess, a little bit later. But as Roger mentioned, this is kind of our symbolic guiding star here, is what we call the reverse pyramid with all the different R's. And the gist of it is, you can see that recycle is way down at the bottom, and use the bin, in other words, the landfill, is at the very bottom. So there's all the other things, and you guys probably know all this, but all the other R's come first, right? So reduce, reuse, refill, repair, it's all part of the spectrum of trying to head toward what we call zero waste or circularity. So we started out working on single-use plastic pollution, and we still are working on that. But we've also now incorporated sort of a broader mission of cultivating zero waste in the state. So I guess I'll just mention that we are the only organization really that tries to address the root causes of, you see litter out there and kind of recycling that's not being done properly, and just any issues relating to waste. We're the only group that's really cares about all that stuff. So we definitely have a singular mission, and have over time sort of been have grown to be respected in that arena, because we really are the only one working in there. And unfortunately, the statistics about recycling, like for bottles and that sort of thing, water bottles, we used to say about 9 or 10% of bottles were recycled, but it's actually less than that now. The number's going down. So that's actually heading in the wrong direction. And we really can't depend on recycling as a solution. The public's sort of been fed a lie about that that is, first of all, that is our problem, and that recycling is the solution. So we try to get beyond recycling and beyond beach cleanups, that sort of thing. And I just real quickly, I'm sure you guys know the impact to animals that are, both land-based and marine animals that are being impacted. This was graphs from a study done a few years ago for roadside litter, and the dark green is plastics of larger sizes and smaller sizes. And it just kind of shows you that the litter on roadsides is plastic is, the worst problem as far as litter goes in Delaware. Plastic pollution is also a climate change issue. Does everybody know where plastic comes from? It comes from natural gas or oil being extracted from the earth and refined, transported to wherever it's going, manufactured into bottles or whatever. And then at the end of its short life of usefulness, generally ends up in the landfill. So, and then the landfill has its own issues regarding air quality, emissions, and concerns for fence line communities and that sort of thing. So it's definitely a climate change issue, and I don't think a lot of people really think of that aspect of it. But that's part of what we're trying to do, is raise awareness that it's not just the litter that impacts things, but it's from start to finish. It's just not a great idea to be having this single-use plastic that is used for such a brief time. And then when it does end up out in the oceans, it breaks down into small little microparticles, and those microparticles end up in our food chain. We're eating those, the fish or whatever that have those microparticles in them. It's part of our food chain now. And there's more and more studies, I'm sure a lot of you have seen them, that just show the health impacts of the plastics that are in our bodies. They've been more and more studies are coming out all the time about the cancer-causing agents of micro pollution, plastic pollution, and endocrine disorders. So I'm sure in the coming years we'll probably find out even more. But you really can't get away from it. It's in, if you drink bottled water, it's in there. It's in a lot of things we eat. It's just it's just ubiquitous right now. So it's really tough. This is just a picture of the Minquidale landfill south of Wilmington. And this was a few years ago. We were doing a rally there. The Minquidale landfill is actually a construction debris landfill, but nevertheless, it's deeply impactful to it's right smack in the middle of a neighborhood. So it's kind of, we need to stop doing this, stop sending what we can to the landfill. So our approach is kind of twofold: doing the educational programs, as Roger mentioned, doing awareness building and various different educational programs. I'll touch on some of them later. And then the policy change work, which is the, trying to get legislation passed to change things, as I said. when we were founded almost 15 years ago, we were working solely on plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. Took us a while to get it done for various reasons, but we still nevertheless were the 4th state in the country to get a plastic bag bill done, which is kind of crazy that it took us so long and we still ended up 4th. But House Bill 130, it wasn't a perfect bill, and it went into effect right around when COVID hit, and the restaurant or the grocery stores and stuff, you may remember, started using like the really thick plastic bags because there was a problem with the way they were defined. So we came back the next year. Luckily, the legislature still supported us, and we got another bill passed that tightened up the definition of what a plastic bag that was illegal, how it was defined. And basically we followed New Jersey's model to say that you had to have stitched handles. And that for the most part takes care of kind of the loopholes that had been there before. So that's been in effect. I'm sure you're all aware of it now. Hopefully you all are sort of training yourselves to use reusable bags as I am, and not just for groceries, but for all your shopping, right? That's kind of the hard thing, is, just to kind of incorporate these new practices into our habits. And but really it's a habit from when I was little, right? When I was little, we didn't have plastic bags. We used to use the boxes from the grocery store, just like they do now at like Costco or BJ's or whatever. You go there and you reuse the boxes that stuff came in on, you take home with you, and then recycle the cardboards. That's what we used to do before they invented plastic bags. So anyway, this is just a quote from the Public Works Director of the city of Wilmington. It's a few years old, but after the bag bill had been in effect for a year or so, I spoke with her, and she just was so happy with the law, and just saying how, what a difference it made in the city of Wilmington regarding litter on the streets, and plastic bags in the trees, and in the water system, and the stormwater system, and Brandywine River and whatnot. So that's just a quote from her. So then we moved, the next bill we worked on in terms of policy change was balloon releases. About 6 or 7 other states had already done it before we got our bill done. And it's one of the tough things is that it's very hard to measure the data for all this stuff. One of the very few data points we have is when cleanups actually write down what they pick up, like on the beaches and watershed cleanups and that sort of thing. But a lot of the cleanups don't keep track of what they pick up. So if you're a data person driven, there's not a lot of data to share with you, but I'm not a data driven person. I just know from my eyes driving around what a problem this stuff is. So anyway, we did get a bill done that declared balloon releases, for the most part. There were some exceptions, as litter, which littering was already illegal. So we just got balloon releases included in there. And it definitely has cut down on the number that are being found in beach cleanups and that sort of thing. But again, I don't have solid data for, well, one reason is the coastal cleanup's been canceled for a couple of years now, due to weather and COVID and whatnot. So that didn't help our data collection. But so then we came back well, it took us a few years working on styrofoam, which is really, styrofoam is the trademark name, so I shouldn't use it, but it's expanded polystyrene foam, EPS, expanded polystyrene, in restaurants. And we also included that plastic straws can't be given out unless requested, and plastic cutlery in the restaurant. So this bill was passed in the spring of 2023. Finally, it took us a couple years to get it right and get it passed, but it doesn't go into effect until next July 1st. So I'm sure you've all seen a lot of restaurants have already, like for takeout and stuff, have already switched to compostable takeout containers and that sort of thing. But all of this won't go actually into effect till next July. So hopefully in the coming months, you'll see a real difference in all of this stuff moving forward. And that's just Governor Carney signing that bill. So regarding zero waste, we a few years ago, we started when we expanded our mission beyond just single-use plastic. Someone at DENREC actually advised us, like, you really should get involved in food waste, because food waste organics is 25% of what ends up in the landfill, which you think about 25% of the material in the landfill is food waste. And that's black gold. It can be soil again, right? Really rich soil. And it's going to the landfill where it's creating CO2 emissions and methane emissions. It's a climate change issue, poor air quality, fence line community issue. So we took their advice. We got involved in community composting. Some of you may know we built our first community composting bin system out at the Tally Day Library. So if you haven't been out there and seen it, it's in the park area as you're driving past the library towards the dog park. And you're welcome to stop in there and check it out anytime. It's not like open to the public. They're locked up just because we don't want people dumping stuff in there, but you can become a member. We have about 25 households that are members. It sort of works like a co-op where everybody, donates an hour or so a month just to move the material and keep the material flowing. But in return, they can they keep their food waste in a bucket or whatever and bring it over once or twice a month, whatever they want. And it's just been, the interest has just been extraordinary. But it's all part of the conversation of reducing food waste. We do a lot of educational programming just at the front end, trying to teach people about food waste and labeling misconceptions and how to reduce what you're throwing away, which helps families save money. But then whatever's left over, your vegetable scraps, your eggshells, all that stuff can be recycled. I live very near the Pennsylvania border, and we have a curbside pickup. So we put our bucket of food scraps out by the curb every other week. But not everybody in Delaware, I would say the vast majority of people in Delaware do not have that option, because the guy that picks up from us takes it up into Pennsylvania where it's composted up at Lynn Villa Orchards. He has a fairly big operation there that he picks up mostly in Chester County and Delaware County and a little bit of Delaware. But if you don't live up in the very, very tippy top of Delaware, you can't access his services. So our goal is to have these community composting bins everywhere we can, find an interested party to have them. And, it's mainly for if you don't want to backyard compost, or you live in an apartment and you can't backyard compost, this is kind of, the next option up. And like, I was talking to one of the members yesterday, and she's like, I could backyard compost, but I kind of felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I kind of like the social aspect of this. So that's kind of what community composting is all about, because Delaware does not have what we call industrial composting. So this bin system just started in January. So it's only been 7-8 months, and we've already diverted, I think it's about 0.5 ton of food waste from the landfill, which may not be, an enormous amount, but if you think, it's getting the ball rolling, and if we get more and more of these all over the place, it will really make a difference. We have a few more in the works that are almost ready to launch. And Bridget Gregory, who does our programming for this program specifically, does educational programming, at libraries, schools, waste audits, churches, any kind of group like this, just to really hone in on this topic per se. But you mentioned that the church has a community garden. So sorry that this is really fuzzy graphic, but this is a graphic of Wilmington, just identifying all the community gardens, the urban farms, the school gardens that already exist in Wilmington. And so we know that these are like, I don't know if you guys are on this map or not, but that may not include church gardens, but those are all perfect opportunities to segue to having a community composting project as well, because you've got a social unit of people that, you know, get together once a week. Like you could bring your bucket with you and manage the community composting food waste all together. So we're trying to get grant money. We've applied for a few grants to really try to catalyze our efforts in the city of Wilmington at places like this. I mean, it'll take a while to get a bunch of sites up and running, but these are kind of the low-hanging fruit, is what I say in terms of trying to get sites up and running. So in terms of educational awareness building, you know, this is kind of a list of all the different kinds of things we do: tabling at community events and film screenings, presentations like I'm doing right now with you guys. We have a tour coming up I'll touch on in a second. We just did a teacher training on composting. We have a monthly webinar series, as Sally mentioned, and again, more school programs. And down at the very bottom, we have well, I'll get to that in a sec. We have a tour coming up at what we call the MRF. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the MRF, but the MRF is down on Lamson's Lane, where the Delaware Solid Waste Authority Educational Center is. The MRF stands for Materials Recovery Facility. So that's where all your curbside stuff goes. This is just showing kind of the bundled plastic stuff, but they also, you know, deal with glass and aluminum and all the contaminated stuff that they get. Plastic bags are a no-no. And, you know, so this is where it's all sorted and bundled up and sold on to other markets, hopefully. And, you know, and then there's a part that people put in their curbside that ends up going to the landfill because it's not something that there's a market for. But if you're interested in seeing the inside sanctum sanctorum of what happens to your curbside stuff, that's in October. You can catch it on our website or just email me or whatever, and I can send you a link to sign up for that tour. We usually go there like once a year or something like that. Another really big program we do every year is our Youth Environmental Summit, which we started about 5 years ago for high schoolers, because when we were doing our plastic bag legislation, we had a bunch of kids, all different ages, from kindergarten to college. And they were really powerful advocates, you know, just awesome. And so I was just like, you know, we need to give these kids more tools, more information. We need to help them, support them, be even better advocates for the environment and climate change, you know, advocates. So we started the Youth Environmental Summit, and we're heading into our 6th year right now. It's in February, and I'm happy to tell you more about that. But we've been maxed out every single year. Wherever we've been in, well, one year we were virtual because of COVID, but the other locations we've been maxed out every year. So this coming year, we're moving to the Chase Center, which will allow us to double the number of kids. We've had 500 the last couple years from 34 high schools, and Delaware has I think it's about 75 high schools. So we're only getting about half the schools represented. So I really want to try to get even more high schools represented moving forward. So we have if any of you are runners, which I am not, but if you are, or you know someone, we have a Black Friday 5K. We just started last year. And the whole idea is to opt outside on Black Friday, spend it with your family instead of shopping for stuff you don't need. You know, do you really need to give all these gifts that, you know, may end up in the trash sooner than later, and stuff that people don't need? So that's kind of the idea about it, is come have fun with us outside instead of going shopping on Black Friday.
I sent to you a copy of what I just sent to Eddie.
I hope that people can silence their mics, please.
I got that one. So that's the end of kind of my slides. I'm happy to take questions and stuff. That's just a quick overview of kind of what we're all about. We're always looking for people to get involved, and no hard sell on the community composting for the church, but we'd happy to talk to you guys about that if you think that there'd be interest there. But that's kind of a quick overview.
Okay, thank you, Dee. If you want to stop share, we can,
Yeah. Whoops. Figure out how to do that. Stop share.
it's on there somewhere.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, great, great. I see, I think getting into composting is really not plastics at all, but it's all related.
It
And
is.
I find that the composting thing really interesting. Of course, I think our community garden was on the map. I couldn't tell because it was a little fuzzy, but I think I saw a little green
Even
dot.
if it's not on the map, the map is just giving an indication of the fact that there are lots of opportunities out there, low-hanging fruit.
Yes, yes. And I wondered about the land for the composting. What was that donated by the county or was it?
It's on county property at the Halliday Park. We don't take up a lot of space. I mean, it is in the middle of the park behind the library, but it's, you know, itself does not take up a lot of space. It's the bin system like each bin is about a pallet's square, and we have a 4-unit, so like 4 pallets square, and then we have another unit that's 2 pallets square. And then like a little rain barrel and a little trunk of tools. So
Okay.
it doesn't take up a lot of space.
Okay. And what is the definition of something compostable? Because we've had some issues. Now, for example, in Canada, Canada in where Ontario, where we go, that Renfrew County has very different rules for waste. And one of the things they collect is organics. And what can go into organics? Things you would not say are compostable because they throw fat, bones, and like used paper napkins.
Yeah,
And
our program, we do not allow meat or bones. I know there are some, I think you have to have a different kind of aerobic and really,
different
really
type of,
hot temperatures to be able to do those. These community composting units don't get that hot. They're just not
okay.
big enough. But any kind of fruit, vegetable matter, eggshells, I don't think at this point in time we've been like really accepting like compostable bowls or paper goods like napkins and stuff. I know that the guy who picks up curbside at my house and takes the name of that company, if you want to Google it, is Wastewell. And I think it's wastewell.org maybe, but I'm sure you could Google it. So if you live anywhere in his service area, you can get him to pick up curbside, but he'll take pizza boxes and that sort of thing. He does not take meat or bones either, but you know,
Okay.
pretty much anything else that comes out of your kitchen, coffee grinds, brown paper, the brown paper filters that you put in your coffee drip filter. I put those in there. But yeah, pretty much anything except for meat or bones.
And where does the material from Tallyday Park go?
So it's, you know, it's still kind of a relatively small operation. So everyone that's a member can take like a bucket when it's finished. When a batch is finished, they can take a bucket home. We've really just sort of started to get to that point where we're at the end of the line giving stuff away. But so it first goes to members, and then if there's anything left over, the plan is to either ask the county if they want it for their, like the garden beds around the library or whatever. But it's not a lot of soil really.
Yeah.
Because as it goes through the process, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, of course, from the vegetable matter.
And Sandy, you had a question about PLA? Yeah, and your mute is on.
So sometimes I have lunch at the back burner and to go, and they provide these compostable cups to get water or whatever you want to drink. And I just was wondering, are they really compostable, and what stream does it have to go in? And so I wondered how compostable would this be? And I can give you more details unless you already know. it says from globally sourced material. Wait, I think it's made from plants.
So, so it probably would be compostable in our site, but we, at this point in time, just like the pizza boxes and the napkins or whatever, we have not been accepting that sort of thing because it's still a pretty small area. The first bin that everything goes into. I do know that there are, like, for instance, we just toured, one of the tours we offered was of this place down in, it's across the line in Maryland, but they pick up from 25 restaurants in Ocean City. And so they only do those restaurants. They don't do household, but they do accept that kind of cup, and as well as like pizza boxes and, you know, compostable bowls, compostable plates and that sort of thing. So but they have a pretty big, Bridget can explain all this much better than I, but they obviously have a big, what they call a windrow system, that takes a lot more material and it gets a lot hotter. And they also have like aeration underneath. They run air, like PVC pipes with holes in them underneath, and then pump air through there to just keep the heat going and, you know, get everything cooking. So if that size operation can take that sort of thing, the problem is there's nowhere in Delaware that can take that sort of thing right now. You can't put it in your curbside because that would just end up in the trash, because it can't go with the other plastic recyclables because it's not really plastic. But yet we don't have an industrial composter anymore in Delaware. We used to years ago, but it was shut down. So someone and I think DNREC and DSWA know this full well. Somebody, some private company needs to come along and get one going again, but there's none on the horizon right now. And that's one reason why our community composting project is so important, because it's kind of building the grassroots interest in composting, and it's filling a niche that the state is not providing right now. So as I'll just add that for labeling, what I've learned, and I'm not an expert in this, but when you look at a label like that, if it says biodegradable, you need to be really careful, because a lot of things that say biodegradable are really just, there's plastic mixed in there, made from fossil fuels. They just put other stuff in there that makes it break down faster.
Yeah,
That's
starch.
just, it's just breaking down into little tiny bits of plastic, really.
Yeah.
So you do want to avoid biodegradable, but you want to look for labels that say compostable. And someday we'll be able, I think, to, you know, put them in your curbside or have a separate bin for those, which a lot of municipalities right now are doing. Some boroughs in New York, some places in Philly, you just have another, you know, one more can at the end of your driveway with your food waste, and that's those kinds of things. But right now we can't, it's not happening in Delaware. But yeah, so look, and even the compostable label isn't perfect, but my understanding is that the definition of compostable is being updated to make it sure that it's more, doesn't contain any harmful chemicals or anything. Because right now I think it's not a pure science, shall we say.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. What I've read about it is that, you know, well, composting is all sorts of different processes. So that you can't apply that term really unless you start giving, you know, the specific composting procedure or ASTM number or whatever you want to do. For some standardization in the industry is certainly needed.
Yeah, it's the ASTM number definition that my understanding is that they're updating it. So hopefully in the next year or so, that might be in place.
ASTM, for those that don't know, is the American Society of Testing and Materials, and they're the go-to for defining what a procedure is on many, many different levels, from mechanics to plastics to composting to I don't know, all sorts of different industrial operations. But and they're pretty good and they're pretty thorough, and we need them to be involved to help us straighten out these things. I have many questions, but I want to ask anybody else if they want to raise their hand and have anything else to ask? Susan?
Well, we live in a senior community in Wilmington, and I noticed because there are a lot of takeout things going on here and everything, but I noticed the labels on the different containers are compostable. And so I think that our community is trying to comply with the effort to be environmentally friendly. But the term compostable, I've learned something tonight from you, what this is all about, because I think everybody here feels we tend to sometimes take our things that we want to eat from the dining area to our apartments. So we have these compostable containers. And so I think it's really interesting to recognize that people that organizations are trying to do what they can. And what this word compostable means, I wasn't sure, but we separate out in our own apartments. We separate out from recyclables, and we put them in a certain container, and we put our own other waste in another container. So this community anyway is trying to.
There is another guy we met a few months ago who has been collecting food waste and compostable. I think he would pick up that sort of thing. And we're still trying to find out a little more, because we're not sure what he does with it, but he does take it up to Pennsylvania somewhere, I think. We're not totally sure if it's being composted, or you have to be careful that it's there's also an incinerator in Chester, and I think there's another one in the Philly area somewhere. And so it's taking trash and food waste and waste to energy, which is not good. We don't want that. We want compostable stuff, food waste, to be returned as soil. So you do want to be careful where it goes, but I guess I'm just mentioning it, that it might be a possibility. This guy that we talked to is looking for new markets, particularly like large, like an apartment building or restaurants or schools, hospitals, that sort of thing. I don't know that he wants to do like door to door like the guy that picks up at my house does, but that might be a possibility. But it is it's kind of interesting, because when we first talked to DNREC about the styrofoam bill, they actually fought us because they said, you're going to make people switch to compostable stuff, plates and bowls and utensils and straws. And then all that stuff, because there is no industrial composter in Delaware, all that stuff is going to go to the landfill, which isn't great. And we admit that, but we need an industrial composter in Delaware for sure to be handling this stuff. And it's, DNREC knows that. They don't want to run it themselves. They're hoping some private enterprise will come along and start one. But hopefully, we'll see one in the next few years, maybe. So I don't know what you're doing with it in the meantime, but that your compostable bowls and glassware and stuff can't go in your curbside, I'm afraid to say.
Oh. Sally, you had a question? You're muted.
Thank you. First, a comment. It's so frustrating, this kind of greenwashing of compostable and biodegradable, and folks feel like they're doing the right thing, and yet it could be messing up the recycle stream.
Yeah.
And I guess the first thing, it's really admirable that you've got this community composting facility up and running. I think that's really just fantastic. And I would love it if we could have curbside pickup. Like my son has it in LA too, but I guess there's no chance of that until we get a composting facility. And even then, I'm thinking our waste, because my waste pickup is a private company, and I mean, I guess they could participate. Sure, they could participate. They do for yard waste. Anyway, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think right this moment, the only, we'd love to get like a curbside program up and running, like somewhere in the city, in a in Newark, in a local government, in a neighborhood, wherever, like get a pilot project going somewhere. And there's lots of federal money out there right now for this issue. So the EPA recognizes this need, and the USDA too. So we've been applying for grants from both of them. But so there is grant money to help get a pilot program started. But like if you wanted to do it right this minute, it would have to be trucked up to PA, to Linville or Orchards or one of the other sites. So there's also one up in Lancaster, PA, but that's a little bit farther away. And then there's also one in Annapolis, Maryland. So I think there is interest. I know of one woman who's trying to get a site going, but she's still very, very early in the stage of finding a site and getting just getting the DNREC permit alone. Is expensive, but it's also time consuming. It probably would take, I'd say, at least a year to get the permit to do this. And then it's a permit just for the site, and then it's different permit for the waste hauling, that if you're driving around picking up food waste, you need another permit just for that. And they both take a long time and they're expensive. So DNREC, I think DNREC needs to kind of lower the barriers to make those kinds of things happen more quickly. But that's the problem right now. We just don't have any place to send it, really.
Well, we have an issue at the church, and I'll tell you what's going on there. A group called the Kitchen Collective has come, and they are going to use our church kitchen, which has had to be upgraded in a number of different ways. But now I imagine the volume of waste coming out of there in terms of eggshells and carrot tops and skins of apples and what all are going to be going up 10-fold or 100-fold from our church. And I don't think we even thought about all of this. I think we're having a talk actually on Sunday about the Kitchen Collective, and it's going to be one of the questions I'm going to ask is what about our waste streams now, and where are they going?
Yeah. And if it is just going to the landfill, are your trash hauling services going to go up? Like in the theoretical world, if you compost your food waste, your trash hauling costs should go down. But I'm not sure, it's really going to work that way too much, because we work on just like a flat fee basis.
Yeah.
So that needs to change too. That's a whole nother subject. But if they're filling up a whole garbage can full of food waste at the church every weekend or every through the week, will that make your costs go up? But if you did do a community composting site, it depends on how much volume they have. But I wonder if we could accommodate the volume from whatever your weekly generation is, and Bridget could help walk you through that. But it's an interesting question. We probably should talk to them, because I'm assuming they're at different locations too. But the other site that we have that's just coming on, we're working with the Claymont Community Center, which has a food pantry and is they're only going to do food waste from their own operations, not accept it from the community. So they're probably going to be the next site we have up and running. But so it might be kind of similar to what you're considering.
Well, that would be very interesting if we could use this as an opportunity to introduce not only the Kitchen Collective, but our whole community about the ability to compost food waste.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Boy, if that came out of this talk tonight, that would be wonderful. Norm's got a question, and then Mark. Norm, want to demute yourself and not demote, but demute. Norm's looking. Mark, if you can demute yourself first, then we'll let Norm worry about that, how to do that.
Okay, good, because my question actually follows up. I think the community kitchen and the composting on site of Westminster is very synergistic, because we can control that. We can determine how much goes into a defined area space. And I think that's a great story and a win-win that's very synergistic. So I'm excited about that from the composting side. there. However, my bigger concern is the plastics. And Roger and Sally talked about the efforts on reducing single-use plastics, which is great. I guess I'd like a little bit more definition of what our plastics waste stream is, and then get an understanding of, as an Earth Care church who takes this seriously, how can we make sure that our plastics waste stream is going into the best available waste stream that there is, and then understand the cost associated with that, and then bring that forth for the church to make a decision.
I love the question. We actually had, we've been having more and more discussions ourselves about this issue, and we had a luncheon webinar ourselves today, and the question came up again. And in October, I mentioned the MRF tour. So please come on the MRF tour. And also our third Thursday Lunch and Learn webinar, which is at noon most every third Thursday. DSWA is going to be our guest speaker in October. So we're doing them on the third Thursday online, and then the MRF tour is the following week. And we all should be asking this question, because even I don't know. We have a guy at DSWA, Mike Parkowski, who's awesome. He's a great partner of ours. He's always willing to answer every question. But when you ask him, where is the plastic really going? That's it, you put in your curbside. I'm not sure we really get a straight answer. And so today we were talking about it, and we did a little scrounging around, like in their annual report and stuff. And it has the companies listed that's buying the plastic from them, but we aren't totally sure what they're doing with it. Are they just taking it to Chester for waste to energy? I don't know. So I can't guarantee to you what is happening to our curbside plastic, and that's a real issue. I totally agree with you, and we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to the other thing we've been talking about is doing an AirTag experiment, where I was involved in one that Bloomberg News did all around the country a year or so ago, and it was kind of, not sure we had conclusive results, but I put some AirTags in bundles of plastic bags and dropped them off where they told me to, and they tracked them. And one of them they think did end up at an incinerator, and one of them I think ended up in a landfill. So we've been talking about doing an AirTag experiment in like plastic water bottles and other types of plastics that we know are going down to Lamson's Lane, and see where they go. And but also, I mean, DSWA is great to work with, and I think if we ask them that question, I think they would try to be honest with us, but we do need to probe a little deeper probably. So I don't know if that's really a good answer to your question, but I don't honestly totally know the answer to your question.
Yeah, I think it is a mystery, and I know that we have someone that we work. Norm has got himself back to speakers.
Unmuted.
If it's I'll just say that we have somebody that's at the church that is on our little maintenance group, and he used to work down at Lamson Lane, and he was a sorter. And he said that first thing, the magnet comes through and gets all the metals out. And then there was another door that was keeping the larger items out. And then everything else came in on belts and people sorted. Now that was just sort of demystifying the sorting.
Yeah.
So they, it's a pair of human eyes that sees what's going on, and this goes, here, there, that way. But it's a mystery after that.
But even like the clean sorted plastic, where's that going? Like, are we sure that's going to be made into lumber or whatever? Like, I'm not, I don't know. I think it's something we need to find out.
Norm, you have a question now?
I do, if you let me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to deviate a little bit, the beaches of Delaware were closed last week because all these syringes were washing up, and that cost the hospitality business a lot of money. In fact, they even had to close part of Ocean City, Maryland. And I wonder what the system is to collect those and find out who dumped them.
Where they came from.
Yeah, we had onshore breezes all week with big waves. Who knows how far they're not just on a narrow little strip of land. They're going inland. So it's a mess.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to, like, who's going to track them down and find them. But hopefully somebody will, whether it's, I don't know, the Coast Guard, maybe, since it's not land-based. Well, I mean, becomes land-based, but the source was off in the marine environment.
I just wonder if there's a mechanism to get non-waste materials collected too.
I certainly think that shipping is a big concern because the rules of the sea are, nobody watches it. Anything that you want to get rid of just can go overboard, and there's very little like you can do to police it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the case here, but I'm sure that the shipping industry has a lot of faults in what they do, and I don't know.
I know they've been trying to tighten it up, but like you said, who's going to catch them and when they're out at sea.
Yeah, I know quite a few people in Lewis who are river pilots who take ships from Wilmington, Philadelphia, go all the way up to Trenton. They're busy people, so there's really a lot of business, especially right now. Their oil ships come in this time of year.
Oil ships, yeah. Sally, did you have another question?
Yeah, I just was kind of following up on the question of where does waste go? Where does the plastic go, and does it really get recycled? And that's why I love ecoplastics, because I know what goes there is going to be really recycled. But of course, they've got, as you mentioned earlier, the limited capacity. But I'll tell you, nowadays, if I've got a plastic number, given that the recycle rate in the US is around 5 to 6%, if I've got I used to scrupulously clean all the plastic that had a 1 or those numbers and put them in the recycle. Now, if I've got a one that's really yucky, I kind of don't going to waste the water, soap, etc., and I put it in the trash.
Yeah.
If I knew it were going to be recycled, I would do that.
Yeah. And those odd shaped containers, is it polypropylene or whatever, I forget the numbers, but they don't like them in your curbside anyway. So
I mean, like the kitty litter boxes and whatnot.
well, like the clear, like cookie containers that
right.
or things like crackers and things like that.
Anything
that's, I don't know, they used to just prefer the narrow neck bottle containers, like a water bottle or a soda bottle or laundry bottles, that sort of thing. But
most of the packaging
come to our webinar next month and we can ask them all these questions.
Well, it's getting close to the end, but I do have a question. We have a new youth service corps at our church, and this is intending to involve youth between the ages of 1st grade to about 5th grade. I may be wrong on that, but I think 1st through 5th grade or so. It seemed like there was some opportunities somewhere in things that you mentioned for both education and participation. And would we be able to brainstorm something that they could do that was meaningful, hands-on, and educational as well?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there is something there that you might be able to think of.
Yeah, we probably have a few options. Bridget definitely does stuff for that age group on like vermicomposting and just like food, digging in your food waste bin, that sort of thing, learning about what can be composted and stuff. I have to think, we have some other things for younger kids, possibly some real short films and then discussion afterwards, or just talking about, I mean, I've definitely done talks like this, but try to make it a little simpler and with a goal in mind, like writing your state legislator or whatever.
Mhm.
Because again, we did have kids of all ages help us with the bag legislation.
What does
So
the S group do? I mean, it's an educational opportunity, but what else do they come takeaways from that?
so every year we have kids can apply to be on the leadership team, and then they start meeting in August through February, and they basically kind of, in theory, plan the conference, but they do pick all the speakers and everything. We have an adult team sort of guiding them and keeping them on track. But there's a logistics team that sort of does the back of the room planning, and there's a workshops team that plans all the breakout sessions. They invite all the speakers, figure out the topics, do, research what might be a good speaker and topic. And then there's a plenary team that figures out the keynote speakers. And so the leadership team group, as I said, meets for 5 months, and then the yes itself is open to 500 or more, hopefully this year, kids. So it's to inspire them. The topics are a wide range of topics for the speakers, and then we also have an exhibitors area where all kinds of nonprofits like Plastic Free Delaware, but other environmental nonprofits, all different kinds, as well as state agencies, county agencies, pretty much anybody involved in an environmental arena is an exhibitor. So when they're not at a session, they can go around to the tables and talk to people about volunteer opportunities or learning, just pick up materials and learn more about what all the different groups do. And we also added a college and career track. So we're trying to add in, like, if you're interested in this stuff, what would you major in? Like, there's all different kinds of majors. You can basically turn any college major into an environmental, green oriented major. And then what can you do after college in the environmental arena? So we try to have some speakers about that as well. And so it's to inspire them, give them tools, give them information.
Good.
So yeah.
Good. Mark, question again? Unmute.
There I go. Thank you. You mentioned calling our representatives as a kid activity. I'm interested in that.
Maybe not
I
calling,
think-
but writing.
Yeah, but writing. I think our church ought to have a larger voice with our representatives. So can you give us the hot topics that we should be calling or writing our representatives about on behalf of your efforts?
Yeah. So one thing I guess I didn't quite cover, I sort of covered the legislation we had in the past, but I didn't really cover what we hope to have coming this coming year. And I just met with our prime Senate sponsor, Trey Pardee, to add. I gave him a long list of possibilities. Like, here's all our wish list of bills we'd love to see. And actually I have it right here. And I was like, okay, what do you, of all these, which ones do you want to do? And so he picked, well, we did the styrofoam bill a couple years ago, but that did not include styrofoam in school cafeterias because that's in a different, we learned the hard way, that's in a different section of code in the state code. So we want to come back and get styrofoam out of school cafeterias. We'd like to ban retail sales of styrofoam goods like cups and peanuts and, styrofoam bowls, that sort of thing. Maryland has already done that. DC has already done that. I think New Jersey has already done that. So it's not like we're crazy and, starting from scratch. The other thing is getting single-use plastic out of state agencies and making yard waste bags needing to be compostable rather than single-use plastic like trash bags. So those
are there bills already going through legislation on this?
Those aren't, these that I just listed are not drafted yet, but we hope to have them by January.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't have anything to tell you right now, but like in January, February, I could give you a little blurb on each one and a list of legislators' addresses and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Or we can come in and talk to the kids and kind of explain what we're trying to do and why, and here's where you could help us.
Well,
And ma-
hopefully this can go beyond just the kids.
Yeah, yeah, adults too.
Hopefully the kids can teach us.
Right.
yeah.
Sally, I'll let you have the last question and then.
Yeah, I just, one question that occurred to me, Dee, when you were talking about banning styrofoam in the schools, how do you prevent those turning into supposedly compostable material that are just going to cause trouble?
Yeah, I mean, we would prefer them to use reusables. Like a lot of schools, I don't know how many, but let's say 50% of Delaware schools are using styrofoam trays that got thrown away at the end of every lunch period. Why aren't they using reusable trays? And part of it is a lot of newer schools don't even have kitchens anymore. Like I'm sure like you guys, like me, when I was in school, we had kitchens with trays and glassware and china and it got washed at the end of every meal. But a lot of schools now, they just don't even have kitchens, don't have dishwashers, which seems crazy to me. So one of the things I talked to Senator Pardee about is making a law that all new schools need to have dishwashers and like a dishwashing room. Because we'd rather see them switch to reusables rather than switch to compostable. But assuming that in the meantime, like before that happens, they do switch to compostable, it kind of goes back to the question of we need an industrial composter that can handle that material.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe we're putting the cart before the horse, just like we did with our other styrofoam bill. But you know, the flip side is these kids are eating off of styrofoam. It's just not good for their health. They're, you know, you're scraping your food off this styrofoam. It's not good. So, you know, I guess choose your poison in a way, you know.
That I'll just say real quickly is concerning the overture that was passed in the General Assembly saying getting away from plastics. There was a paragraph in there that said you make reusable or compostable in plastics, and we kind of said, can you take those parts out? And the answer we got was the momentum was really already going on this overture, and don't wreck the whole thing by being picky on that part. So we said, okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
not, I mean, the more you delve into it, it's not a perfect world, right? You know, and it's the tube of toothpaste you squeeze here and it comes out over here unexpectedly. And we don't live in a perfect world. It's not a black and white world, but we're choosing our battles and trying to do the best we can.
Yeah. Dee, thank you very, very much. This was quite entertaining, and as a plastics engineer myself, full disclosure, as a plastics engineer, I am very interested in everything that you're doing and is going on today.
Well,
And
thank you so much. It was fun talking with you all.
yeah, we've
you very
got a couple things we can take care of here.
Okay, you got
Composting.
regular business.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Okay.
what would you suggest
Oh,
about composting?
okay. Well, happy to come back or visit you in person or whatever. And if you want to learn more about the community composting possibilities, we can get Bridget to meet with you too.
And you didn't give a last name to Bridget, so
Oh, I'm sorry, Gregory.
Bridget Gregory. Okay,
Mhm.
great. Okay,
Dee, on behalf of everybody here, thank you so much for the work that you are doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And, you know, it's all people like you that help make us, you know, successful and make progress happen. It's, as I said, we started back in 2010 and everyone thought we were crazy, literally. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people. And now it's gratifying to see there's really the momentum of this movement has grown so much. There's so much interested in it. And like you even see the White House starting to make policy change, and hopefully Congress will be soon for a national, like right now, all the momentum is at the state level, but there's tons of bills before Congress. They just haven't, as you know, really passed much of anything.
Yeah.
But it's coming, and it's gratifying to see that there's so much new awareness about this issue. So thanks for having me. I enjoyed talking about it.
okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.